I'm joined by Salim Mansur, Professor Emeritus at the University of Western Ontario. Hi, Salim.
Good evening, Robert.
We're covering today a momentous and to me, an earth shattering event, and that is the arrest of PPC, People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier.
Do you have any weapons or anything on you, sir?
Weapon? No, no weapon.
Anything on you that's
only
gonna
my
hurt
words.
me or anything like that?
Sorry?
Anything on you that's gonna hurt me or anything like that?
No, no, anything will hurt you. Only my words, only my philosophy, only what I believe in.
Okay. All right, come on over this way.
A couple of things struck me, and we'll get into the conversation about why this is such an egregious action on the part of not just the RCMP who conducted the arrest, but also the people behind the scenes, Brian Pallister, the Premier of Manitoba, etc. But one thing that I really loved, I mean, to put some icing on this cake, are the words of Maxime Bernier when he's being handcuffed by the RCMP. The RCMP said, "Do you have any weapons or anything on you, sir?" "Weapon? No, no weapon, only my words. Anything on you that's going to hurt me, or anything like that?" First of all, what a question. Do you have anything that's going to hurt me? No. And Maxime's response was golden. "No, nothing that will hurt you. Only my words, only my philosophy, only what I believe in." And truer words were never spoken, because these people, not just the RCMP and the arresting officer, but Pallister, Justin Trudeau, Aaron O'Toole, and the mayor of Winkler, who was the mayor of the town where Maxime was supposed to go next in his Mad Max tour of Winnipeg, protesting the lockdowns. They're all deathly afraid of what Maxime has to say. And to go along with that, the news coverage, at least by CTV Winnipeg, said that Maxime is being represented by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, a right-wing organization. So apparently now lawyers, it's headed by, I think, Bruce Pardy, we've spoken to and we're friends with, are, defending your constitutional freedoms, your charter rights, is now something to be considered right-wing. And of course that's a pejorative. It's not meant simply as a descriptive, to be on the right of the political spectrum. It's meant as a pejorative. And I would like to ask your opinion, your views on the arrest of Maxime, because you, of course, ran as a People's Party of Canada candidate. I was your campaign manager. And we've both met Maxime, and we both endorse and support what he's been doing with this Mad Max tour across Canada, protesting the erosion and destruction and violation of every Canadian's charter rights to mobility, of assembly, of peaceful protest. Your thoughts, Salim?
Well, the immediate thought, when the story broke last evening and I started receiving phone calls from my friends and started talking about it, my immediate thought was, this is unprecedented. A leader of a national political party being handcuffed and put into paddy wagon sort of thing, into a police car, in this case, the RCMP vehicle, and then being booked for whatever that is, the violation of Manitoba rules on COVID-19, was now finally the mask has completely fallen, or should have fallen after this, with the people, that we are no longer an advanced liberal democracy, that is Canada. We have rapidly, over the past 15 months, turned into some third world country, basically an animal farm, a totalitarian animal farm, where there is one set of law for me and another set of law for you. As opening remarks, the shredding of our Charter of Rights and Freedom. Well, for 15 months, we have been living through the most brutal lockdown ever in a history of any society, but a history of a society that prides itself to be a liberal democracy such as ours, or in the case of the United States, a Republican constitutional democracy. So there has been a lot of talks about, how did we arrive here? Where did we arrive here? Perhaps we can delve into this. But those were the immediate thought that there goes. I mean, this is in a sense, the mask has fallen. We are an animal farm. We don't have any Charter of Rights and Freedom anymore. Our inalienable rights have been eroded. And the arrest of Maxime now demonstrate that the only political party and the only political leader in this instance that is standing up for the history of Canada, for the values of Canada, the values that founded Canada, the values that we treasure and gave us our identity, is Maxime is the only leader. And the others are just running scared of Maxime because they're running scared of the people. They have no further way to defend their egregious behavior in which they have taken away our rights. And COVID-19 and everything around COVID-19 is now pretty much clear, except for the low information voter, except for those who get their information from the mainstream corporate media that is heavily censoring the news and the stories about COVID-19, the wheels have fallen off. There is absolutely no basis anymore for what these governments have imposed upon the people, and now they don't know how to get off and deal with the people. And the arrest of Maxime represent, in that sense, not in any way the vigor and the strength of a democratic society, but it represents basically the bullying and the intimidation that we know is what is called the China way, or what used to be the Soviet way. We have imported all of that into the country. This is what it is, where we have arrived at.
It's interesting, right now as we speak, the G7 leaders are meeting in England, and you notice that none of the leaders there, but one, are wearing masks. That one, of course, being Justin Trudeau. At least he wears a mask in front of the camera. And none of the leaders there, the elite, are social distancing. They're all hobnobbing, and for the cameras, they'll do the old elbow bump. But behind the scenes, they're shaking each other, holding each other, shaking hands, and it is a facade. This is a circus we're witnessing here, where there's, as you've mentioned before several times in our discussions, the elite of the world living beyond us mere mortals who have to put up with their laws and their stupid regulations and their bogus rules and health concerns, which have been discredited. I mean, half the world is open and returned to normal, but one of the most brutal lockdowns in the world is right here in this country, Ontario especially, Manitoba especially. The rest of the world is getting on board with moving away and moving on with their lives. We have, I don't know how to describe this, but we have been duped so much with a leader like Justin Trudeau, and all the other premiers, all of them without exception, have swallowed the United Nations line of a global village and a pandemic and the World Health Organization's edict and Anthony Fauci's flip-flopping. I mean, we are the laughing stock of any rational person left in the world. Wouldn't you agree that we have become such a clown world here in Canada that it almost beggars belief?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the reference you're making of the G7 conference that has been going on this for the past couple of days, the pictures that I saw recently, just before coming on, from not the Canadian press, but from the press in UK, some of the pictures of the garden party where the leaders have gotten together and they are, having a good time. And there is the Queen and the future King, Prince of Wales, Charles, and Camilla, and so on and so forth, the royal family. And I didn't see, as you say, not even Justin Trudeau with a mask on. And they're all, not keeping any social distancing. When they take public pictures, they engage in that facade, trying to be politically correct. But the game is over. The game was over months ago. And as I said a little while ago, the wheels have come off. We now know for sure, or almost as sure as we can be, without the indictments coming and the investigation taking place in the United States. I mean, is this government in the United States, this phony government of Biden, will they appoint a special counsel as they did so quickly in the case of Trump, with the Russia-Trump collusion hoax that went on for 2.5 years, and there was nothing in there. They, in fact, impeached Trump. But now there needs to be a special counsel brought in, just as it happened after 9/11, just as it happened in the Watergate case, a 9/11 commission to investigate how did this happen, because the story is now undeniable, except that they're trying to censor it, that Fauci was giving money, packaging money, bundles of money, through directly or indirectly through various organizations like EcoHealth, to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That this was not the bad coronavirus or COVID-19 is not a natural virus. It was taken from the bat viruses and then weaponized through the gain of function research, which, by the way, had been put on pause in 2014 by the Obama administration. And then in 2017, only about 11 days before the inauguration of President Trump, that the Obama administration undid the pause so that, the gain of function research problem would then fall in the hands of President Trump. So all of this needs to be investigated. But Fauci was the point man. And this is, a virus that was fabricated by the people at Wuhan Institute of Virology with American money and American. By the way, there is a Canadian participation. Our press has been totally silent on this matter. The backstory has never been explained, or why the two Chinese virologists at the Safety Lab 4 was so quickly expelled from Canada, taken out of Canada when last year. So the point is, in the case of Canada, Maxime is the only man standing up and speaking about this. Maxime is asking the question that needs to be asked. Maxime has gone out. There are a few other political leaders like Randy Hillier from the Ontario legislature, Derek Sloan, who has been expelled from the Conservative caucus, but is still a sitting member from Ontario in the House of Commons. But Maxime is the political leader who has raised this issue, who's traveling across the country against the lockdown and against what has happened, that has left to, I think, devastation of our Canadian economy, which will mean devastation of the Canadian people. The economy is, at the end of the day, people, jobs lost, families broken, addiction being spiked, divorces, domestic violence, suicide. And all of this thing now rests entirely on the shoulders of the governments. they have to answer the question or run away from answering the question by bullying and intimidation and silencing the people. And that's exactly what I saw when they put the handcuff on Maxime, a leader of a Democratic Party, and with people. I mean, they didn't win any seat in the last election, 2019, but the party had, full national campaign. The party will again be ready to run a full national campaign.
He stood on the stage in the mainstream media for the debate. He was there at the debate with all the other leaders. I mean, he's a respected individual with bona fides going back many years.
Pallister is a conservative premier, quote unquote, conservative premier of Manitoba. Him is not some unknown person. He is the Honorable Maxime Bernier. He was not only a member of parliament for over a decade from both Quebec, he was a member of the cabinet. He was Canada's foreign minister. So this is not some anonymous guy who was walking around. And the way they handled him was pure intimidation through Maxime, the message being sent to the Canadian people, we are an animal farm. There is a law, one for us, one for you, and we are going to go after you if you're going to question any of the things that we're doing. It is completely, the situation here in Ontario with Doug Ford. They're operating as if, on their own whims. They have just now opened or relaxed in step one of the lockdown in Ontario. So all the box stores are open. Walmart and Costco and all the big things are open. So the patios in the restaurants to get open and allow people to sit social distancing, but the mom and pop stores, the hair salons, none of that is open. And so the question is, does the COVID-19 operates on the basis of Doug Ford's whim and caprice?
It does. Yes, it does. Now, here's something I want to ask you, Salim, because it sort of stands out. When he was arrested in St. Pierre Jolys in Manitoba, it's a very small town, just south of Winnipeg, and there was probably about 15 to 20 people there to meet with him in the outdoors. And he had been previously ticketed, $1,200, I believe, some outrageous sum, for at a previous town. And when he got to St. Pierre Jolys, he was ticketed again, apparently, another $1,200. I mean, and Pallister himself said that if he continues to do what he's doing, he's going to be a little light in the pocketbook, right? Which is a threat. Now, here's the question. I didn't hear about anybody else at that meeting or outdoor meeting or anybody else in the previous town, Niverville, I think it was, being arrested, put into jail. I only saw Maxime being ticketed and arrested. Now, I believe in the rule of law. You really believe in the rule of law. And if the law is, by the way, this is not a law, it's a health order. If the law is as it is on the books, then it should apply to everyone equally. Now, the RCMP were at all of these events, but only the leader of a political party is arrested, not anybody else. So obviously this is targeted to Maxime. And Maxime put it correctly. He's targeted for his ideas, his philosophy, his words, right? It has nothing to do with a virus. It has nothing to do with a pandemic. It has nothing to do with the rules that Pallister set down. It has to do with Maxime Bernier and his philosophy and his trying to reach other people with his philosophy. Pallister is deathly afraid. Justin Trudeau is deathly afraid of what Maxime is doing, and rightfully so, because if Maxime was permitted to do and to exercise his constitutional right to meet and to assemble and to speak, then I think that this country would turn around. And to further to that, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but further to that is the CTV Winnipeg saying that the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is a right-wing organization. That kind of nonsense, that kind of smear, that kind of tactic to put Maxime into, oh, he's just a right-wing lunatic, right? The media, the government, all of those elected officials, the health officers, the RCMP, they are complicit in destroying our freedoms. And I'm frankly sick and tired of it. And I hope that something good comes from the coverage of Maxime's arrest, because this country has to turn around.
If the Canadian people are waking up, and I hope they are waking up, then the manner Maxime was treated in Winnipeg, Manitoba, by the official authorities. By the way, the RCMP would not have acted if Brian Pallister had said not to act. I mean, that we can immediately infer. The RCMP provide the police force in Manitoba because they don't have the police force of their own, as Ontario does or Quebec does, we with the OPP and so on. So in the Western provinces, it is the RCMP that provides the policing resources to the provincial government. So Brian Pallister is basically sending a message, I suppose, of intimidation and bullying. That's what I see in this matter. Because Maxime had been in Manitoba and he had been given a ticket once before. And those tickets will, pile up and go to the courts and so on. It will be adjudicated, and if the court do uphold that there has been a violation or whatever Mickey Mouse laws that they have put together, then that will be then exercised. They could have simply again given him a ticket, but this was, remember, only a month ago, what the manner in which the police force in Calgary behaved by arresting Pastor Pawlowski. In a similar situation, he was taken out of his car on an Alberta highway, forced down onto his knees, his handcuffed, and then dragged into the paddy wagon, The manner in which they dealt with Pastor Coates in Edinburgh, in Edmonton, arrested him and threw him into prison. So this is, in one sense, we are seeing a pattern of behavior, that there is no charter right, there is no individual right, there is no freedom. The question about freedom, the freedom doesn't come from the government. It is the government that cannot break the laws, because the freedoms are inalienable rights. So the government cannot break the charter laws. The charter laws are the fundamental laws of this country to protect the people from egregious behavior and conduct of the government. And the government is egregiously engaged in subverting and breaking the guardrails of our democracy. The guardrails of our democracy is the Charter of Rights and Freedom. So now the argument is completely over. There's the other point, if you have a few more minutes that I would like to say, just slip over. This Maxime has been out in the front. He is the only political leader, and PPC, People's Party of Canada, is the only party with its members. In this case, I, for instance, as a member, and we ran on it in 2019, and we haven't stopped talking about it. We're the only party focused on globalism. This is the globalist agenda. This is the Great Reset. In other words, the Great Reset is the great Marxist manifesto, communist manifesto, being recycled into Western democracy. It is not being recycled in China. It is not being recycled in India or Venezuela or Cuba. It is targeted to the advanced democracy of the world, and it is targeted in a manner in which the political parties and the political leaders are all the stooges and puppets of the globalists who are pulling the string, the globalist oligarch. We have to be very clear about this. So getting not into the weeds about globalism in this discussion, but here's the point that I want to stress for the Canadian people. If they have awoken to what globalism means, then my dear Canadians, for 15 months, you have been given a dose of globalism. Your rights have been taken away, lockdowns have happened, your children's schools are closed, and it is going to be how you live your life, where you go shopping, how you bank, who has the right to give you a jab and penetrate your body, and so on and so forth will all be dictated as it has been dictated in China or in Soviet Union under Stalin and Khrushchev and Boris Yeltsin and so on and so forth, or in Cuba under Castro. This is globalization. You've had your taste of globalization, and now do you want to live under a globalization and its policy, UN agenda, sustainable development, climate accord, COVID-19, pandemonium, and its rules and regulation and protocol that they have constructed without any input of you people, us people? Do you want this to be your permanent lifestyle? Your grandfathers went and put their lives on the line to defend freedom. And 75 years later and counting, now your grandfather, what they fought and died for, you are going to embrace the very totalitarian system that they defeated. In that case, it was the totalitarian system based upon racial superiority. Well, there has been now, 75 years later, a complete fusion between racial superiority and class-based issue. So we have now class-based racial analysis, critical race theory. This is what your children are being taught. This is what you're bought into. This is what is the end run of multiculturalism. So Maxime is the only person. Maxime is the only name on the ballot as PPC that if you want to push back, if you want to take back what is your right, that was never given to you by anybody, it is your right. And it was, put together in the Charter of Rights to say, yeah, this is going to be the guardrail of your democracy, and no politician can breach it. And if they breach it, then they will be taken to law. The Supreme Court has to judge them. All of this is gone now. All of it is basically over. And I think that's what has happened now. I mean, the Maxime's arrest now is a full disclosure. It is a full striptease, you might say. We are in a striptease bar, and the full striptease has taken place of what is globalization, And are you going to be so drunk? Are you going to be so blind? Are you going to be so deaf that you don't see what has now been stripped? The stripper has stripped, and this is globalization that is going to be imposed upon all of you. You've had your 15 months of taste of it. Going forward, this is what it's going to be.
There may be some silver lining to the arrest of Maxime Bernier, and that would be that it now, besides the fines, of course, and tens of thousands of people have been fined, and most of them have just been thrown out of court as being unconstitutional. But now we have a leader of a political party being arrested who can go to court and defend himself in a court of law, because there's really, in my estimation, only three ways to change things. It's legal. And now we've got that venue for Maxime. Hopefully, with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, can strike a blow for freedom. And of course, there's the ballot box. And the third way, I'm reluctant to say, but it doesn't involve peace. So I thank you for your opinion, Salim, as always. And let's touch on this again as we speak here. By the way, Maxime was released on bail of $1,000. And got on the first flight out of Manitoba because he was under the condition that he'd no longer violate Manitoba laws. And so he basically said, well, I can't do that, so I'm out of here. He will be back to appear in court in July. And I await that trial, and maybe we can touch base again and see what happens then. Okay, thank you very much, Salim.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much.